So we're just waiting for that live feed. Just to let you know, I'm not really nervous because of y'all. It's because that camera's on, and not just y'all are seeing it. It's going to be family and friends and everybody, and a lot of people don't know my story because, in addiction we hide our life. Paper, the lights are so bright. Okay, we are ready now. Hi, everybody out there on Facebook. I'll go through it again. So my name is Jenny Bird, and I got married 3 weeks ago. I want to introduce y'all tonight to my God, not the God most of you probably have known before recovery, but my God is a God of goodness, of love, and of hope. I am an addict. I started my journey of recovery in 2015. Since then, I have tripped up, relapsed 4 times, and came back to treatment in March of 2016. I was in a lot of y'all's shoes out here in the crowd. I went to transition here, and this time I really wanted it. Was in a mess of my life, and it had hit rock bottom. So I'll tell you a little bit of my story. I was in addiction for 12 years, really longer than that, but to opiates specifically for the last 12 years before coming to treatment this time. There's some parts of my story I'm trying to not speak specifically about, but I think you need to know. So it's really hard also with the audience that we have for me to tell my story honest and truthfully, and I think y'all need to know. As a child, I was sexually abused. At 17, at 13, I started using drugs and cutting. At 15, I was worried about my weight and started doing Slim Fast and pretty much starving myself. At 17, I became pregnant, and my son is now going to be 14 in January. Got into a relationship with his dad that became physically abusive. Most of my character defects, which you'll learn about once you do the steps, come from the things that happened to me when I was a child, and the fear that I still face and have to fight through. When I was 19, I became an addict. Started doing heavy drugs at that point in time in my life, and we all say we love our kids. Well, I thought that I loved my kids. I realized that the last 12 years of my life, I have been in a major denial. So I got married at 19, and I married a drug dealer. We all know how that goes. You get wrapped up pretty quick, and life spiraled downhill. After we had been married 3 years, my son was in a major accident and had 8 surgeries and 3 blood transfusions. That was the point that I started doing a daily maintenance of my drug of choice, and couldn't function without it. 2 years after that, I had cancer, and of course was prescribed at that time my drug of choice. And then when the prescription stopped is when I started going to the streets and getting all involved in that. My husband went on the run. Took my children with me. Left Vanderbilt. I was working at Vanderbilt at that time to caretake what I thought for my husband. I'm going to save him. In recovery, I have found out that is definitely a toxic codependent relationship. I thought I would die without this man. In our 12-year marriage, he went to jail at least 12 times. A lot of the time, me and the kids were alone. I couldn't hold down a job, so I began selling and doing anything I could. Panhandling, stealing, pawning my family stuff. And addiction just kind of kept spiraling down to eventually we lost our house. We lost our cars. And I could have lost my children. I never did. And when I came here, I was living in a pool house. I didn't have anything but the clothes that I had. My life had pretty much hit as far as it could for rock bottom. I was spiritually dead. I grew up going to church, a little Baptist church, and thought that once you sinned, you were always a sinner and that your life would never get any better. Well, upon coming to recovery this time, I have paid attention, I have took suggestions, and I have listened to what other people told me to do. Coming to this church, I found God. I found a God that is different from the God that most of us were taught, which is, harsh punishment, and that we would never be anything other than what we are. So even now, as I'm standing here, I know that my body is in a spiritual warfare. I know that right now, standing here, that the devil is telling me that I'm not good enough to stand up here right now. So I have to fight things still too. Just because I have a little over a year in recovery doesn't mean that I don't struggle. But the pain that you feel now starts eventually going away. The road isn't easy. The road isn't beautiful. The road is very difficult to find out who you are when you're sober. And you feel a lot of feelings that you never felt before, especially if you've been using since you were young, or partying, or whatever you want to call it. In recovery, I have still been married when I first got here. I had a relationship 2 weeks out of treatment, and I'm one of the lucky ones that I did not relapse in that relationship, and that is the man that I met in treatment. But as to say, I was married, and even though I wanted to leave him, I was fearful of leaving him because I was so codependent on him. I went back when he got out of jail and said, I'm going to fix him again, and went to meet him. Well, I wound up doing dope and having sex with him again and having a boyfriend. So in this relationship, me and Carl have worked through a lot of things, specifically on me because he has more experience than I do in recovery. I had a whole bunch of problems, and John and Bridget can tell you that my life since I have been here has been an emotional roller coaster. It has had some great ups, but it also has had some great downs, and just trying to figure it all out and trying to figure out what makes me like this. So I'm going to read you a thing out of one of my devotionals. It's called My Strength in My Song, and this has been awesome to get to know God for me. It's called Found in the Desert. He found them in the desert, a windy, empty land. He surrounded them and brought them up, guarding them as he loved them very much. Deuteronomy 32:10. Do you ever go through seasons in your life where you just feel dark, perhaps directionless or uninspired, in a metaphorical wilderness where you can't get a glimpse of any vision or even hope? God can find you, even in the deserts of your own heart, where you can't muster up the strength to reach out to Him. He will meet you halfway. Wait on the Lord, even in your emptiness. Wait for Him, and He will continue to come. Thank you, Father, for being near to me, even when my heart is broken and my strength has failed. Thank you for finding me in the wilderness and restoring my joy. That is what my God did for me. So that one was a good one I thought I would share with y'all because it sums it up. He found me in the wilderness. I was still in the wilderness in sobriety and still in this huge cloud of denial, thinking things would work out, but I hung on to what me and my husband had before my son's accident, before our life fell apart. And I relapsed those 4 times, going back to that same situation, same people, same places, same things. They tell us, and I'm like, oh no, it'll be different. I love him enough. Our love's gonna be strong enough. No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. All it did was wreck me every time I went back and left me broken. So I'm grateful that God has revealed all of this to me. My weaknesses that I have continued to work on are codependency, guilt, shame, rejection, and fear. When you grow up in a household and you have to keep a secret your whole life, and right now it's pretty much the most people I've ever told, and only a few people know in my family. It makes it very hard to trust people. It makes it very hard to talk. It makes it very hard anything because you've learned to keep secrets all your life. And that was my fuel to keep using. I would not let it go. I would not forgive. My parents told me to forgive and never taught me how to forgive. In this church and in recovery and the support group and the people here, I've learned how to forgive. And I have been freed from what has kept me down my entire life. And that's only God, that you're able to accept things that have happened. Of course, there was a lot of guilt and shame from that, and you continue to build guilt and shame, and what they call in treatment is your backpack. You continue to fill that up, and eventually you just wear yourself down again. You have to find a place to be able to let go of that guilt and shame. Rejection was a really hard one for me, and I still deal with that as well. I have that problem of feeling like I'm not good enough, feeling like I have to be a people pleaser, or they won't be my friend, or my kids won't love me, or any number of scenarios. Constantly fighting that, and I'm constantly fighting fear. There's been several instances where I've had to fight through my fear. I'm scared of heights. I am scared of pretty much everything. There's 1,000 forms of fear, and if you stay in recovery long enough, you'll learn about all that too. And it pretty much is what makes us do everything we do. The fear has taken over my life until this point. And I wouldn't have moved past it. I left this relationship that I'm now in marriage with out of fear. I did a lot of things out of fear. But I eventually found how to let go and let God, and found acceptance. Acceptance is something that you must find to be able to recover. And it doesn't come easy. Like I said, the road to recovery is not beautiful. It is hard. It is a lot harder than going and finding dope and doing that lifestyle. I will not sit here and paint a pretty picture for you, because it's not like that in the beginning. It is very difficult to deal with your emotions, and our emotions are mainly what made us use. The way we felt, the way we thought. You got to change all of those things in your mind. And then when you're first in recovery, you're like, how do I do that? Let go and let God. What does that mean? It's on the walls in the recovery programs, and it just sounds like a saying, but the longer you stay in recovery, you start understanding all that. Let go and let God for me was letting go of all of that baggage I had in my backpack. So since I've been in recovery, I have been blessed a lot. I got kicked out of Buffalo Valley because I was stubborn once again and didn't listen over our relationship, and found myself homeless once again, living in a hotel, wondering what in the world am I going to do? I'm going home. It was at that moment, am I going to fight for myself, or am I going to go back home when I know that it ain't going to work, because I've done that before? So I decided to stay, and I got to the point where I was going to live in a tent, but God blessed me with a house. And I started working in a factory here. And 8 months later, God blessed me with a vehicle. And then after that, I got someone telling me about Vanderbilt and said they had an opening. And I thought I'd never be hired again. I left without a 2-week notice. Of course, they didn't know what I was doing. They might have after they found my husband on the news, but at the time they didn't know what I was doing. So I have my job back with Vanderbilt now. And I am recently won an award for being the most improved employee of the whole Green Hills office. And that is definitely not me. That is God all the way around, because I was struggling to fit into normal society, especially with my fears of people and customer service, and I'm on the phones all day long. And my scores came up. They rate our calls now. My scores came up to 100% from 60s over a month. And with that, I left out that I signed my rights over to my kids when I went to transition. I thought it was what was best, because I knew I couldn't take care of them right now. I've worked really hard to get those scores up, because this job will provide me to be able to go work from home, and my daughter will be moving back in with me in August. My son is of age to make his own decision, and now he's decided to stay with my parents. That was something that was very hard for me to do, was leave my kids behind, stay in treatment. I wanted to be with them, but I knew that didn't work. Anytime that I went straight back to my kids and tried to be a full-time mom again, that was too much. I lasted 90 days. We love them. We want to be with them, but the best thing we can do is put the face mask on first. If I wouldn't have done that, I wouldn't be standing here today. And I love my kids enough to do whatever's necessary for them. I even have worked 10 days straight to pay for Christmas, all weekend long. He's also blessed me with a great marriage that never should have lasted. I don't think our motives were correct when we first met. We were both young in sobriety. But I am grateful today that God has blessed me with a Christian man. We both have gotten baptized since we've been here. And he is working on getting his counseling degree. My goals for me in the future, when my daughter gets a little bit older, is also to become a counselor or a motivational speaker. Got to work past this fear, though. I'm going to talk a little bit about choices. You know, we all have a choice here. And we can make the right choice and we can make the wrong choice. A lot of times I've made the wrong choice and thought I knew what I was doing. The best thing you can do is get a sponsor and get a support group, church group, members, everything. I had to have it all. I actually have like 3 churches now, and I have 2 different groups I go to. Well, three different groups I go to. So I need a lot of help, and I know I do. I know I'm not fixed, and I know I got a long way to go, but I'm not where I was a year ago. Living on a float in a pool house, with it freezing and shivering all night long and waking up because I am cold, and I have left my babies to be with this guy. And you know, it's crazy how, and the insanity of your addiction is. You would leave the ones you love most to go do dope and to stay with the other person, which really, now that I have worked through the steps and got some sanity back, realized that he was my drug too. And that also comes from my childhood. So, I'm going to do an outro. I don't know how long I've talked. I had an hour, but it's all good. So, God is the entire cure for your weakness, your entire hope, the great physician. The problem, we have tried to cure ourselves with our addictions. In the Bible, it states, lead not into your own understanding, see by faith and not by sight. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, and the evidence of things not yet seen. Hebrews 11:1. If you trust God, He will lead you out of the darkness, out of your storm, out of your desert, into your peace, joy, freedom, and success. The question is, will you let Him? It's all a choice. Are you going to let Him today? Are you going to turn your life over and say, I don't know what I'm doing, and say, someone show me the way? You got to be open to it. Change isn't going to happen overnight. You got to start changing your life and to start making changes to your life. You have to really search for the answers. And I know for me that I didn't have a clue when I came here. So I'm going to read some more scripture. Today's daily devotion is, let my unfailing love be your comfort. Comfort eases grief and trouble. It also gives me strength and hope. The best source of these blessings is my constant love that will never fail. No matter what is happening in your life, this love can console you and cheer you up. However, you must make the effort to turn to me for help. I'm always accessible to you, and I delight in giving you everything you need. I have complete, perfect understanding of you and your circumstances. My grasp of your situation is far better than yours. So be aware of overly introspectively trying to figure out things by looking inward, leaving me out of the equation. When you realize you have done this, turn to me in brief prayer. Help me, Jesus. Remind yourself that I'm the most important part of the equation in your life. Relax with me a while, letting my loving presence comfort you. In the world, you will have trouble, but you will be a good cheer. I have overcome the world. So that is what God has done for me. And I have lived by a motto of live it, love it, and be it. if you ever want to get anywhere in life, you got to pray, 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 pray. Even when you don't feel like your prayers are working, he don't hear you. There's been times where I went to Pastor John and Bridget, and told them I felt so far away from God. You know, they talk about the pink cloud when you first get in recovery, and you're all happy and excited about life and it getting started, and then you break that pink cloud and you go into the factory, and you're like, this is not any different. This sucks. But it takes time, and over, a little over a year, I mean, my life is just completely different. And even though I'm still a spaz, I'm nowhere near what I used to be. And I do have peace, and I have joy, and I have happiness. And I'm okay with who I am and who I will be today. So I brought some lanterns that were supposed to be for our wedding. We delayed our wedding, and we actually got married on a Sunday and went to work the next day. It was supposed to be this extravagant wedding with outside stuff and a bunch of flowers and beautiful. And so these lanterns are significant to me. I would like y'all to write what you want to let go of, what you're holding on to.